Dennis, the diesel shunter, tries to keep his lazy tendencies at bay, but sometimes they can get ahead of him and they can cause confusion and delay. One evening, he was resting in the yard after the day's work, when the Fat Controller came to him. "Well, Dennis," he said, "I have been pleased with your work effort the past few days, and I want to give you some more new jobs." "Of course, sir," said Dennis's driver. "What do you want us to do?" "Well, tomorrow you ought to take tourists to the Earl's estate, and then help out Thomas on his branch line. Then you ought to take a goods train to the mountain village at Ofsted, and then shunt at the coaling plant. Oh, and one more. You ought to go to the factory at Knapford Yards and pick up a water heater for the Wellsworth Waterworks. And it is important because if the water in the waterworks freezes, then it won't be able to be supplied to the water towers, and that would never do." "Sure thing, sir," said Dennis's driver. "We'll get it done and do our best." But Dennis was not enthusiastic about it at all. He had never had that many jobs before in one day, but he knew he had to do what Sir Topham Hatt told him. The next day, Dennis begrudgingly did all his jobs. But he was putting in little effort, and wanted it to all be over as soon as possible. It was nighttime when Dennis got done shunting at the coaling plant. He was quite relieved that his last job was over. Or so he thought. "Alright, Dennis," said his driver. "We still got one more to go. We got to go and pick up that water heater from Knapford." Dennis had forgotten all about that, and he didn't want to go all the way to Knapford. Then, Dennis went back to one of his old tricks. "Driver," he said, "I think I'm overheating. I don't think I can make it all the way down to Knapford." "Well, the Fat Controller said it was very important," said Dennis's driver. Dennis thought for a moment. "Well, if it's that important," he said, "then if I don't show up, another engine will have to do it." Said Dennis's driver. "You better get you to the nearest shed then." So Dennis backed into Wellsworth's sheds, pleased that he was able to fool his own driver. The next morning, Dennis was getting ready to do his jobs, which he didn't have many of that day, so he was happy about that. Just then, the station master ran up, looking out of breath, and was carrying a piece of paper. "Hello," said Dennis's driver. "Is there something we need to know?" "Yes, there is," said the station master. "Sir Topham Hatt telephoned. Apparently the waterworks froze. Several of the engines are unable to fill up their tanks. I was told to go to the nearest engine I could find and give them this list of all the other engines' jobs." Dennis's driver took the piece of paper. "So if I understand correctly," he said, "we're to do all of these jobs?" "Yes," replied the station master, "until any other engines are available. But you best be off now, or else you'll be late." Dennis was horrified, but he knew he had no other choice. First, he had to do Edward's job of taking scrap to the smelter's yard. Then, he had to do Emily's job of taking Ivo Hugh to the steamworks. He even had to do multiple engines' jobs at once. As well as his own. Finally, at the end of the day, Dennis completed his last job. "Phew," said his driver. "Finally, I've been getting aches from sitting in your cab this whole time. Let's get you back to the shed so I can go home." Dennis was about to agree, but then he remembered. "Wait," he said, "we still need to pick up that water heater from the factory." "Oh," said his driver, "I had forgotten completely about that. Well, we can go and see if it's still there." So Dennis pulled up to the factory, and sure enough, the heater was still there on a flatbed. Soon Dennis was coupled up, and he brought the heater all the way to the waterworks. Later, Dennis exhaustedly returned to the shed. His driver stepped out of the cab. "I am very surprised that you actually wanted to do that last job," he said. "Well, I knew that the steam engines might not have gotten their water," said Dennis. "I could have gotten stuck doing all their jobs a second time. And believe me, I never want to do that again."